From humble wanderers to masters of an empire, the Aztecs rose from obscurity to dominate the heart of Mesoamerica. Their journey began not with wealth or power, but with myth, hardship, and survival. Guided by their god of war and sun, Huitzilopochtli, this people known as the Mexica transformed marshy islands into the magnificent city of Tenochtitlan and forged a realm feared across central Mexico. How did outsiders, once dismissed as crude nomads, achieve such greatness? This is the story of the rise of the Aztec Empire. The rise of the Aztec Empire. Wandering the valley, the Mexica origins. The story of the Aztecs begins long before their empire, with the wandering Mexica people. Originally from the arid north, they were part of a larger cultural group later labeled Chichimeca by their neighbors, a word often used to mean barbarian. Around the 12th or 13th century, the Mexica migrated southward into the fertile valley of Mexico, where numerous established city-states already thrived. These included powerful centers such as Texcoco, Culhuacan, and Azcapotzalco, each boasting noble dynasties and long traditions of governance. According to legend, the Mexica were guided on this migration by their patron deity, Huitzilopochtli. He promised them a homeland where they would flourish, marked by a divine sign, an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a serpent. Until that vision appeared, the Mexica endured decades of hardship, often scorned and driven from lands by their stronger rivals. They survived by offering their military services as mercenaries, trading their skill in warfare for protection and a place to settle temporarily. By the time they reached the Valley of Mexico, the Mexica were hardened by generations of struggle. Yet compared to their neighbors, they were poor, landless, and politically insignificant. Few could have imagined that these outsiders, mocked for their humble origins, would one day stand at the center of an empire that stretched from coast to coast. Their unlikely rise had only just begun. The eagle and the cactus, founding of Tenochtitlan. The Mexica's destiny crystallized in a vision. According to tradition, Huitzilopochtli revealed to them the sign of their promised land, an eagle perched upon a cactus, clutching a serpent in its beak. This vision appeared in 1325 on a cluster of small, swampy islands in the middle of Lake Texcoco. To most observers, the site was uninhabitable, marshy, surrounded by water, and vulnerable to floods. But to the Mexica, it was a divine command. They named their new home Tenochtitlan, the place of the prickly pear cactus. What began as a precarious settlement of reed huts soon became a triumph of human ingenuity. To survive on the watery terrain, the Mexica engineered chinampas, or floating gardens, by weaving reed mats, piling them with soil, and anchoring them in the shallow lake bed. These fertile plots produced bountiful crops of maize, beans, squash, and chili peppers, sustaining a growing population. Over time, a network of canals and causeways linked the islands, transforming Tenochtitlan into both a city and a fortress. The founding of Tenochtitlan was more than practical survival. It was a spiritual act. The eagle and cactus became enduring symbols of divine favor, a reminder that the Mexica were a chosen people. To later generations, this vision embodied their right to rule. Even today, the image of the eagle on a cactus remains central, emblazoned on the flag of modern Mexico. Though the settlement was fragile and its people still politically weak, Tenochtitlan stood as a testament to resilience and faith. From these swampy islands, the Mexica would build a city that rivaled the greatest in the world. Survival through alliance and war. In the early years of Tenochtitlan, the Mexica's survival depended on their ability to navigate a dangerous political landscape. Surrounded by powerful city-states, they were often viewed as crude upstarts. Without noble lineage or wealth, the Mexica secured their place by excelling in the one resource they could offer: their skill as warriors. The Mexica became sought-after mercenaries, fighting on behalf of stronger states in exchange for land, protection, or political recognition. They offered tribute and military service to powerful neighbors like Culhuacan and, most significantly, the Tepanec rulers of Azcapotzalco. This alliance was not one of equals. The Mexica were essentially vassals. Yet these relationships gave them the opportunity to prove themselves in battle and to forge crucial marriage alliances. By marrying into established dynasties, the Mexica's leaders began to elevate their own legitimacy among the valley's nobility. This period also solidified the Mexica's militaristic culture. Warfare was not merely about survival. It became central to their identity and religion. Capturing enemies for sacrifice, rather than simply killing them, became a marker of honor and divine favor. Young Mexican men were trained from adolescence to become warriors, and military success quickly became the path to prestige and social advancement. Though subordinate to their overlords, the Mexica were patient. Every battle fought, every tribute delivered, and every alliance formed built their strength. By the early 15th century, Tenochtitlan had grown in power and ambition, waiting for the right moment to break free from vassalage and seize its destiny. That moment came in a revolt that would change the balance of power forever. The Triple Alliance, foundation of empire. By the early 1400s, the Mexica had grown restless under the dominance of the Tepanec rulers of Azcapotzalco. While the Tepanecs relied on the Mexica as valuable soldiers and tribute payers, the Mexica themselves were no longer content with vassalage. The tipping point came in 1426, when the Tepanec ruler Tezozomoc died. His successor, Maxtla, attempted to crush the Mexica and reassert control. Instead, he provoked open rebellion. In 1428, the Mexica of Tenochtitlan forged a bold alliance with two other city-states, Texcoco to the east, a renowned center of culture and learning, and Tlacopan to the west, a smaller but strategically useful partner. Together, they became known as the Triple Alliance. United, the three powers launched a war against Azcapotzalco, defeating the Tepanecs and ending their dominance of the Valley of Mexico. The terms of this alliance were clear. The three partners would divide the spoils of conquest. Tribute from defeated cities was distributed in shares, with Tenochtitlan receiving the largest portion. This arrangement cemented the Mexica's rise to prominence. For the first time, they were not merely serving as mercenaries for others. They were shaping the future of Central Mexico. The Triple Alliance also laid the political foundation for what would soon become an empire. While Texcoco and Tlacopan remained important partners, Tenochtitlan's economic might, religious prestige, and growing military strength quickly made it the dominant force. Within a generation, the Mexica capital stood at the center of a vast tributary system that stretched far beyond the Valley of Mexico. The formation of the Triple Alliance was the true birth of the Aztec Empire. From this point forward, the Mexica no longer fought for survival. They fought for supremacy. Expansion and tribute, building an empire. With the Triple Alliance secured, the Mexica set out to transform Tenochtitlan from a rising city-state into the beating heart of an empire. Under the leadership of rulers such as Itzcoatl, 1427 to 1440, and Moctezuma I, 1440 to 1469, the Aztecs embarked on an ambitious campaign of expansion. Neighboring towns were conquered, distant provinces subdued, and tribute systems established to funnel wealth into the capital. The system of tribute became the lifeblood of the empire. Defeated cities were not necessarily destroyed. Instead, they were bound in the network of Aztec power by obligations of goods, labor, and captives. Every year, caravans arrived in Tenochtitlan bearing maize, beans, cacao, cotton, jade, feathers, and, perhaps most importantly, human prisoners for ritual sacrifice. Tribute both enriched the city and reinforced the Mexica's dominance over their subjects. Aztec armies pressed outward in all directions, campaigning as far as the Gulf Coast and Pacific regions. By the mid-15th century, their empire stretched across much of central Mexico, and their influence extended even farther through trade and intimidation. Conquered peoples often retained their local rulers, but these leaders governed only at the pleasure of the Mexica and their allies. This rapid growth transformed Tenochtitlan into a city of unparalleled wealth and splendor. The spoils of conquest financed temples, palaces, aqueducts, and markets that astonished visitors. Yet the empire's expansion was not merely material. It also carried a profound religious weight. Mexica rulers believed their conquests were essential to honor the gods, especially Huitzilopochtli, who demanded the blood of captives to keep the sun moving across the sky. Through a relentless cycle of conquest and tribute, the Aztecs built not just an empire, but a political and spiritual order that bound diverse peoples together under Mexica's supremacy. The rise of Tenochtitlan was nearly complete. Power and prestige from city to empire. By the late 15th century, Tenochtitlan was no longer just a city. It was the dazzling heart of a vast empire. Rising from the waters of Lake Texcoco, its causeways stretched like arms across the lake, drawing merchants, pilgrims, and rulers from every corner of Mesoamerica. To those who entered its bustling markets and towering plazas, Tenochtitlan was a city that rivaled, and in many ways surpassed, the capitals of Europe and Asia. The city's population soared, reaching more than 200,000 inhabitants, making it one of the largest cities in the world at the time. Its urban design was a marvel. Broad avenues lined with temples, palaces adorned with mosaics, and aqueducts that carried fresh water from nearby springs. At its center stood the Templo Mayor, the twin pyramid temple dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and war, and Tlaloc, the god of rain and fertility. This monumental structure symbolized the fusion of spiritual devotion and political power that defined Aztec rule. Tenochtitlan's prestige was not built on architecture alone. The empire's wealth poured in through tribute, fueling vibrant markets where goods from across Mesoamerica were exchanged: cacao from the south, obsidian from the volcanic highlands, turquoise from the north, and tropical bird feathers prized for their beauty. The capital became a hub of cultural exchange, where poets, artisans, and priests elevated Aztec civilization to new heights. Equally important was the Aztec military elite. Eagle and jaguar warriors, adorned in elaborate costumes, represented the highest honor a man could achieve. Their presence at ceremonies and in the battlefield alike reinforced the militaristic ethos of the empire. Warfare, religion, and governance were deeply intertwined, ensuring that the empire's expansion and rituals of sacrifice maintained cosmic balance, as well as political control. Through its wealth, its spiritual authority, and its unmatched military power, Tenochtitlan stood as a symbol of Mexican destiny fulfilled. What had begun as a desperate settlement on a swampy island had grown into the radiant center of an empire that dominated Mesoamerica. Toward the height of power. By the end of the 15th century, the Aztec Empire had reached the pinnacle of its power. Successive rulers, including Axayacatl, Tizoc, and Ahuitzotl, expanded the empire's reach far beyond the Valley of Mexico. From the Gulf Coast to the Pacific shores, city-states fell under Aztec control, bound by tribute obligations and military might. The empire was not a unified nation, but a tributary system, a web of conquered peoples compelled to provide goods, labor, and captives. While resentment simmered among many subject cities, the overwhelming power of the Aztec armies, combined with the empire's religious authority, kept the system intact. Tenochtitlan's rulers cast themselves as the guardians of the cosmos, their rituals and sacrifices essential to maintaining the balance of the universe. At its height, Tenochtitlan dazzled outsiders. Spanish chroniclers who would later see the city marveled at its size, its orderly streets and canals, and its thriving markets filled with goods from across Mesoamerica. The Mexica had achieved what once seemed impossible. From outcasts and wanderers, they had risen to dominate an empire of millions. Yet this rise carried within it the seeds of future peril. The empire's reliance on constant warfare and tribute strained relationships with subject peoples, many of whom chafed under Aztec demands. When new challengers appeared on the horizon, The cracks beneath the empire's dazzling surface would soon widen. But in the years before that fateful encounter, the Aztecs stood unrivaled, their empire a testament to ambition, ingenuity, and divine conviction. The rise of the Aztec Empire is a story of resilience and determination. From humble beginnings as wandering outsiders, the Mexica carved a place for themselves through faith, warfare, and innovation. Guided by their gods and driven by necessity, they transformed a marshy island into one of the world's greatest cities and built an empire that dominated central Mexico. Their rise was swift, their power immense, and their influence enduring. The legacy of their empire still echoes today, from Mexico's national symbols to the ruins that continue to be uncovered beneath modern streets. But the story of the Aztecs does not end with their rise. In the next chapter of history, their empire would meet an unexpected challenge: the arrival of strangers from across the sea. The collision of worlds would test the strength of the Aztecs and forever reshape the destiny of the Americas. Until then, thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this exploration of the Aztec rise to power, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to History Help with JD Queentry, where we illuminate the past, educate the present, and forge the future.